Oh, there's an election on the horizon. No, I don't mean the general election. I mean the one that you're all following, of course, the election in the House of Lords. Oh, yeah, that's right. They get them there. Next week, there's going to be a by-election to replace 2 of the 92 remaining hereditary peers that still sit in the House of Lords. These days, only hereditary peers who've been elected can sit in the Lords, because there's a lot more than 92 of them. And this election features some names with real political pedigrees, as our Ellie has been finding out.
The bill that ended hundreds of years of constitutional history. In 1999, the ancient right for hereditary peers to take their place in the House of Lords was ended. Put simply, they'd have to sit in another place, other than, well, this other place. But as a small compromise, 92 hereditary peers were allowed to stay, voted for by their, peers. It was meant as a temporary measure until further reforms could be agreed on. That was 15 years ago. The slightly awkward issue is that those 92 hereditary peers are mere mortals, and like us, they get old and need to retire or die. And when that happens, groups of the remaining peers vote for new lords from a list of people who, historically, had a hereditary right to be here. Beautiful place you have here. OK, it's not his house. Lord Aldington was at Ditchley Park in Oxfordshire on business. He's standing for election as a crossbench peer, along with 17 other candidates, all lords, earls, dukes or viscounts, and names like Sudeley, Marlborough and Lloyd George. But he says no one's doing it for the status.
I'm not sure who would notice. Their wives or sisters might notice, but I think down at the pub, if you're a lord, you're a lord. In fact, most people assume I'm a member of the House of Lords already.
Lord Aldington's father, Lord Aldington, was a high-profile Conservative MP before he was given a hereditary peerage. His son, who, by the way, has had his own distinguished career outside of politics in banking, prefers not to align himself with any party.
To be in the House of Lords would be a great honour, but I think that to be a crossbencher in the House of Lords, to me, is a supreme honour. Because you're there. You're by yourself. And you speak for yourself, and you can hopefully make some contribution.
Lord Hilton is one of the original 92 hereditary peers who stayed on, and now he's doing the electing.
I would look at their previous experience and what they might be able to contribute, which may be highly specialised sometimes. I think there are probably 4 or 5 quite good candidates, and who will win, I've no idea.
The results of the election will be announced next Tuesday. A full list of candidates isn't available on our website. Sorry.
It's about the only thing that isn't on our website. That's Ellie there. Now, I'm told that BuzzFeed is very big in these hereditary by-elections.
I think it's one of those quirks of Parliament that our readers find absolutely baffling and can't get their head round why the 13th illegitimate descendant of Nell Gwyn is still allowed to sit in the House of Lords, or at least even be elected by their fellow aristocracy to sit there again. Yeah, I mean, it completely befuddles people, but...
Do they read about it?
Oh, they do.
And you feed them information? Do you have a favourite?
Well, there is one man who's standing repeatedly on the basis that he wants to avenge his grandfather's bankruptcy and believes that getting into the House of the Lords is the only way to do this. And somehow, due to a quirk of the British Constitution, he's allowed to keep standing. Might soon be able to make laws.
So the constituency, it used to be all the hereditary peers were in the Lords, then I think under the Blair government that changed. And it's now that they are still allowed to elect 92 of their kind, right?
Exactly. And one has to die for them to have an election.
Right, so 2 have died because we've got 2.
Exactly. The age profile is fascinating. I remember Lord Putnam, the film producer, told me once he couldn't work out why in the House of Lords everybody's hair stood on end. And he realised it was because there are speakers on the back of the benches and they lean across and the static makes the hair because they're a little bit deaf. So it's a completely extraordinary place. But actually, I covered the House of Lords for quite a long time, watching the debates as a parliamentary correspondent. And the quality of the debates from some of the experts there really is brilliant. So really what they should do, I think the sort of elected House of Lords is a kind of false route to go down. What you want is more and more experts, people who really know what they're talking about. If anything, they should be elected by, the professional bodies or the groups of people who. So you should have representatives of the medical profession.
What do you mean, like the corporate state?
The establishment.
That's what Mussolini had.
Well, I think you want people who know what they're talking about. You don't just want professional.
We can have people knowing what they're talking about in television debates or making public speeches. They don't have to be in a chamber that governs our
What I think
laws.
you don't want is an equivalent of the House of Commons. What you don't want is more MPs who've been booted out of their seats becoming peers.
This is a transition period at some stage, isn't it? I mean, we used to have hundreds of hereditary peers in the Lords. They're now down to 92. And at some stage in the future, some government will say, thank you very much. You're out.
Well,
all of you.
These 92 were only supposed to be here for a couple of years, and then we sort of gave up trying to find a solution on how to get rid of them.
I'd forgotten that. You're quite right.
This was a temporary measure. This was a bodge to try and get the original removal of most hereditaries out, and now we're left with them. We don't know what to do.
None of the MPs can ever agree on what they want to replace them with.
Don't you think the rest of the world, the rest of the democratic world looking at this, must think we're mad?
It is extraordinary. They look at Washington, their kind of gridlock system.
Sure.
At least it's not quite as undemocratic.
That's a consequence of people's choices.
But that's the danger with having two elected parliament. Okay. That's why the MPs don't like an elected Lords often.
Well, we'll be doing a This Week by-election special coming up when we get the results. We'll be on all night. Molly the dog will be here to keep us company, and the moment we get the scheduling right, we'll let you know.